Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is part 2 of our series, and it's up in the air whether the first part was actually recorded successfully or not. And if it has not been, then I'm considering just spending a quick hour and doing it just by myself and putting it up for you afterwards. So I'm sorry if you were looking forward to that and didn't get it, but I will do a quick review as we start. So here we go. Let me, somehow reason I'm unable to share my screen. There, okay. Okay, for some reason it's taking a while. I'm sorry about that. So Elaine, can you just confirm that it's just one big picture and I don't have any of the side notes there? It's just the picture. Elaine, can you confirm?
Yeah. Just
okay.
The picture, no side notes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this is part 2 of the 4 elements. We dealt with 2 last week, which we dealt with Adama, which is earth, and wind, which is ruach. So today, obviously, that leaves us Eish, which is fire, and Mayim, which is water. I apologize ahead of time, as I did last week, because there is such an overwhelming amount of material that I just had to choose what was of interest to me, and which is what I did for that one and for this one. So again, we're going to do it a little bit differently today, as we shall see. I'm going to give you, well, first of all, thank you. The thank you today is just for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he will show up as a player in our discussion later on. But I think that we all need to take a moment out. I mean, we do hopefully every day in our tefillot, but just to say, I'm here by the grace of God, basically. So thank you, Hashem. Okay, and so today our roadmap is we have an introduction, we have Mayim and Eish and an overview of those, and then we have a case study in the firemen, and then a love story in 3 parts. So let's get going on those. The first one is the same introduction as last week, which is, and I went too far. I'm sorry for the loading problems. Okay, so we start with I'm going to read it in the English because it's all that's necessary here. This is from the Ramban on Vayikra, and it's just basically to explain to you, to show to you that this is a thing within the Torah, that the 4 elements are legitimate, Kilu. So there we go. So know that just as the formation of at the original creation of man's body, as well as that of all living creatures, vegetation and minerals, was from the 4 elements, fire, water, earth, and air. These basic elements were first created by God, and out of a combination of them, he made man, etc., which are combined by divine power to form material bodies, which as a result of their thickness and coarseness could be perceived by the 5 senses. Okay, so that's the idea behind it. It's a legitimate concept within Judaism that there are these 4 elements. Of course, it's not, modern science, but nevertheless. Then, okay, it's probably going to go forward too now because I'm having issues with it. I'm so sorry, people. There. Okay, so this is, I said last time, was taken whole cloth from the Rav's Shiur on Mor Nevuchim, which you're all invited to join. The idea here is there's a whole bunch of ideas that are like sort of whited out in terms of that, but I just kept them for the sake of completion. But the idea that I wanted to highlight is the one over here, that it says Vehen arba'a yesodot eish baruach v'mayim ba'aretz. So there's the 4 that we just mentioned: fire, wind, water, and earth. But the added idea here is shnaim olim v'hen ha'esh v'haruach. So 2 of them move themselves upwards, go upwards. And I suggested last time that was towards their source, towards something, a higher element. And we talked about the creation of man last time. It's created from ruach and adama. V'shnaim yordim, and 2 of them go down, v'hen hamayim v'ha'aretz, and those are the things that are pulled down by gravity, which is water and earth. So therefore they sort of return to their source, which is more of a material source as opposed to a spiritual source. So there we go. So we've done our introduction. Are there any questions? Okay. There are. If you do have questions and I don't seem to see you or whatever, please just put a little note in Melanie, which is Elaine, into her box, and hopefully she'll alert me to the fact that there is a question. So thank you very much. And I'm sorry if I don't see you immediately, but always you're welcome to do that, or pipe up even and just like unmute yourself and let me know that you have a question and you haven't understood something I said, that's fine, I'll stop. Okay, so now we're going to do Mayim and Aish overviews. And this is how I had originally envisioned this, but then I, of course, get off on a tangent and then everything goes by the wayside. So here we go. So water. This is just a very, very brief overview of the appearance of water in at least the Torah, if not, well, not all of Tanakh, but the Torah. And so the first is at creation. Obviously, there's like the Mayim Elyonim, the Mayim Tachtonim, the separation between the waters. It's of the flood. So we would ask ourselves, is water a kind of cleansing material because it's a renewal, and also in the mikveh, that kind of thing. Meetings at the well. So I've like explored all of these ideas, and then I hit on the one that we are going to do today. But nevertheless, meetings at the wells. Rivka, Rachel, and Tzipora met their besheret, if not the besheret, the shaliach for the besheret, at the wells. And so is water significant in that way? And again, if anybody would like to email me at the end, I'll give you my email, and I'd be happy to talk about this with you and any of your ideas on it, and even maybe get together a little bit, and that could be fun. Okay, so then the wells that were dug and fought over by the Avot, right, with the nations around. In Egypt, we have Moshe in his basket in the water, and of course the plagues, the plague of the first plague of Dam is in the water, frogs, even Barad, right, the hail. Next one, crossing of the waters. We have the crossing of the Yam Suf, of course, with Bnei Israel. We have the crossing of the Jordan as we entered Eretz Yisrael. There's one more coming up today. Moshe's water challenges, which is where I really thought I would go when I first thought of this idea, that there's the 3 water challenges, which is when he had to throw the branch or the stick into the well to make the bitter waters not bitter. And then, of course, his hitting of the rock and his supposed to be speaking to the rock. So, and how's water an essential element in that? But again, that's not what we're doing today. But if you have ideas, I'm happy to hear them. We have 2 ideas. I'm just going to skip. The Egel Hazahav, the golden calf, was ground up and put into water that people had to drink. Similarly, the Sota, I skipped one, but the Sota as well. The Shem Hashem was written and dropped into water, and she had to drink that. So that could be a concept that could be investigated. Again, like I said it last time, this could be an entire semester of discussion about water itself. In the Mishkan, we have Urchatz B'mayim. That seems to be the recurring phrase. And again, that's related to Tuma and Tahara and Sara'at and all of those things that you have to wash yourself to basically cleanse yourself, sort of like way back when we talked about the flood. So none of those really are going to talk about today, but it's just an overview for you to think about and maybe come up with some of the ideas on your own. Maybe give it to your in some future time. Okay, fire, the overview for fire. There's the fiery sword at the entrance of Gan Eden. There's Sdom, of course, which was destroyed with fire and all sorts of good stuff. The burning bush, which we actually will lit upon today. We will get there. At Har Sinai, there was also a large amount of fire. Corbanot, by definition, which is where we're going to start. In response to Bnei Israel's complaining, we have at Tav'era, God sent down a fire to destroy them. Korach also, right? The fiery snakes incident, the pillar of fire, and I'm sure for both water and fire, I've missed out some. So that's just the overview, but now we're going to get into basically 2 ideas for the rest of the day, as I said. But first, before we do that, I want to give some background and talk about Corbanot. So here we go. In Vayikra, it says, "V'teitzeh esh melifnei Hashem v'tochal al hamizbeach." So there is, right after, when they first were dedicating the Beit HaMikdash, they gave a korban, and this korban was eaten by Hashem, right? V'teitzeh esh melifnei Hashem. So God sent this fire down to eat this korban, and in theory, they do say the korban was in as a antidote as for the Egel Hazahav. We were trying to do tshuva, there you go, for our sin there, but it's not clear, right? Ved hachalavim, and also the fats. Vayar kol ha'am, and then all the nations saw. Vayaronu, and they, here it says shouted, but also they maybe sang. V'yiplu al panehem, and they fell on their faces. So I just want to talk about this idea that this was an extraordinary event, right? They gave a korban and they didn't expect that Hashem would send a fire. So all of them were basically in shock. And this was an amazing moment for Bnei Israel. It was not quite like Har Sinai, but nevertheless, I can imagine that they were all quite shocked. Because fire coming from the sky is just an odd happenstance, an odd occurrence. So as that happened, you have to ask themselves, like, why did Hashem send a fire? So I'm going to suggest that, and I'm sure other people do as well, that Hashem wanted a connection. And so he said, you're giving me this korban, I'm giving you this connection by sending a fire. But the fire did not end there, because this is Chizkuni, and he says, and I have to go over here, and he says, so the fire came out. So the fire that came down for that in that instance did not leave the Mizbeach until I think this was a mistake, but maybe not a mistake, but I didn't understand Beit Olamim sounds like when Moshe died, but I think it's more when they created the Beit HaMikdash. And the one that there's another one that came down in the days of Shlomo, Lo nistalka mimizbeach ha'olah, did not leave the Mizbeach. Nistalka bimei Menashe, also a typo there. So because of the typo there, I thought maybe it's a little bit of a mistake there. But nevertheless, so this idea that this fire was always on the Mizbeach, and it was never allowed to go out from the original fire that was there that Hashem sent down. So that's going to be important, because Hashem's sending us this fire saying, I approve, I love you, I'm with you. Okay. So now we're going to talk about this idea that there were 12 fires, and the 12, I'm just going to translate now, and then we're going to go through them. There are 12 fires, V'ken matzinu yud bet ashot, that there was 12 fires shenaflu min hashamayim, that came down from the sky, b'dorot u'b'zmanim chalukim, in different times throughout history. Sheish mehen hayu lekabalat hakorbanot, v'derech vatzui v'rachmanut. So 6 of them were like positive fires, where there were fires because God approved of what we were doing and wanted that connection that I was talking about. So in the other 6 were because God was angry with us and he wanted to exact vengeance. Okay, so just we're going to go through them quite quickly, but just the idea that, seeing what's there. So I'm just going to go through the colored parts, not every single word. HaKorbanot halalu nitchanech Bahem Hamishkan. So this at the dedication of the Mishkan, the one we were just talking about now, when the fire came down. There was one also Gidon Kasher Sha'al. And if you want to go back to this, if it's recorded, you can look at the sources and go check them out yourselves. Okay, Gidon Kasher Sha'al Ot Min Hamalach. So Gidon had an encounter with an angel. He was being told that he should be the leader, and he asks for a sign that God is going to be with him. And then the fire came down from the sky with the korban that he prepared. Manoach kishenigla hamalach leishto. So the malach appeared to his Manoach's wife, telling her, and then him by extension, that the son that she was pregnant with is going to be Shimshon, and he should be a Nazir, etc., etc. So, and then also there was this fire coming down for the korban or the offering that they gave. Okay, kishabah davar al ha'am v'kana David hamakom begoren arona hayevusi. So there was an issue that David had to choose how he was going to be punished. That's not really the issue right here, but just after that, he bought this goren, this threshing floor, and where the temple would be built eventually, and then he gave a korban after that. The Chamishit b'mei Shlomo shalem binyan Beit HaMikdash. When the Beit HaMikdash was completed, then just as we said before, a fire came down as well. And the final one is in the days of Eliyahu, in the challenge at Har Carmel, where there was Nevi'ei HaBaal, there were the prophets of Baal, and Eliyahu was on the other side, and they both brought Corbanot, and whichever one would be taken, the Aish would come down from God, he would be the true God. Okay, we're going to see more of that soon, because in case you haven't understood yet, he is our fireman. Okay, and the Shisha Sheyarda Derech Ka'as Ve'Nekama. So the 6 that came down that were because of Hashem was angry. The first one was Nadav and Avihu, where they gave a Eish Zar, a Korban Zar, an unrequested, undirected offering, and God did not like that. They were Kohanim, and they had to do what they were told to do. The next one is Kimitonanim that we mentioned before, Tav'era, where the people were complaining and God sent down a fire to consume them, I assume. At Korach as well, we always think of Korach as being the hole in the ground, but there was also a fire there that consumed 250 people. The fourth one was Eov, that's not so well known even by me. right? It's basically, it says, Esha Elokim, Nafla Mina Shamayim. Something happened there that also a fire came from the sky. And now we're going to go back to Eliyahu, right? So a Chamishi and a Shishi, the fifth and the sixth ones were from Eliyahu, where he V'sarfa l'sar chamishim v'chamishav. So this is a very strange incident, and I brought a slide for it in a second, but let's give some background. So first of all, Achaziah was the king after Achav. So Achav was the king during Har HaKarmel incident that we talked about just slide before. Now this is his son, and during the time of his son, Achaziah got sick, and he sent a messenger, a mishlachat, a delegation of 50 people and their leader to go to Ekron, which is in the Plishti territory, to inquire of the gods there of what's going to be. Will he die or will he live? So basically, the famous quote that Eliyahu says, he meets them on the way. He's told by God to go meet them on the way, and he says, "Hamibli ein Elokim beYisrael, atem holchim lidrosh bibal zvuv Elokim Elokei Ekron." So there's no gods in Israel that you're going to ask for a foreign god what's going to be with you. Basically, shame on you, right? So then what happened is the first delegation took that message, went back to Achaziah, and Achaziah said, okay, go get this Eliyahu and bring him back to me. But Eliyahu was afraid for his life, so he was up high on a mountain, and these people came to him, and he says to them, and they say, come with us. And they say it very rudely and disrespectfully. And v'yaneh Eliyahu v'yedaber el sar chamishim. So he answers and he says to the captain of the 50, "Ve'im esh Elokim ani, tered esh min hashamayim v'tochel otcha ve'ed chamishecha." So if I am a man of God, then a fire should descend from the sky and eat you and consume you and all of your 50 people. And just in the story of Eliyahu, there's a lot of direct repetition, which is part of the issue of Eliyahu, right? V'tered esh min hashamayim. So indeed, the fire did descend from the sky. V'tochel oto ve'ed chamishav. So it ate him and his 50 people. So Achaziah wasn't happy. He sent another 50 people. The same thing happened. They spoke to him without respect. And then the third 50 people, and they were also consumed like this. And the third 50 people, the captain was much more understanding of how he should behave nicely, and it was fine. And he went with him. He shouldn't be afraid. And he talked to the king. So again, we're looking at Eliyahu as a person connected deeply with fire, right? He had the fire of Har HaKarmel, which we'll see more of, and he has this kind of fire. But now we're going to do the case study of our fireman. He is also connected with water. And how is he connected with water? At the very first pasuk where we meet him, okay, the very first pasuk, we see this: "Vayomer Eliyahu Tishbi mitoshavei Gilad el Achav." So Achav is now the father of Achaziah, the person we just were talking about. Chai Hashem Elokei Israel asher amadati lefanav. So the Lord lives, the God of Israel, whom I serve, right? If it will be in these years, talu matar, any rain at all, any dew or rain at all. Ki'im lefi dvari, except by my bidding, except by the words of my mouth. So again, it could be that he's speaking in the name of Hashem, but it seems to be, you could also sort of think that, wow, like who are you to say that there's going to be no rain? But he was aligned with God in such a unique way, a distinct way, that God listened to, even if it was him saying it, God listened to him, because of course the Achav was a very bad king, married to Queen Jezebel, and they were Baal worshippers, and they were very bad. So God was happy to accede to his request for no rain, because he wanted to punish the people, or maybe it was God's request himself. Okay, so at the beginning of the whole issue, he said, there will be no rain. This is my decree. And at the end of the issue, this pasuk doesn't bring it saying that he, like in this pasuk, there's no words that Eliyahu said that there should be no rain, but it's clear from the idea on Har HaKarmel, which we'll see in a minute, that he was the one that allowed the rain to happen again. Okay, so basically, if you look at the word Geshem, Vehi Geshem Gadol, so at the end of this whole story, he allowed for the rains to come back. Okay. And the next incident with water, and so we're getting the idea that water and fire are very integrally connected to Eliyahu. So this is the story here. I'm not going to read it all. The story of when he dies. So at the beginning, I've highlighted the word mayim at the top and mayim at the bottom, and I'll read those psukim, right? So Eliyahu was walking with Elisha, and he was near the Jordan River, and he had been told, there was a prophecy, they both knew that Eliyahu was going to die. So Vikach Eliyahu et adarto, ויגלום ויכה את המים ויחצו הנה והנה ויעברו שניהם בחרבה. So just like before the Yam Suf split for the Jewish people, when Bnei Israel went through the Jordan, it also split as we entered Eretz Israel. So just interestingly, we're not dwelling on it now, but the idea that Eliyahu was able to take his coat and split the Jordan River, and he walked through to the other side with his disciple Elisha. And basically, I highlighted the Ruach HaCha here because the idea is Elisha was asking him, could you please give some of your Ruach to me before you die? And he answers him and says, yes, that's what you asked is difficult, but if you see me go up, then you'll know that it was granted to you. So, and then over here in the middle, Vihi Hema, Holchim Haloch V'daber. So basically, it sounds like they're just taking a nice stroll, walking and speaking and talking to each other, right? So this chariot of fire and horses of fire, and they separated between the two of them. So Eliyahu went up in a whirlwind whirlwind to the sky. Okay, and then Elisha stayed on the ground, cried out, was upset. And then he picked up the coat, basically the bottom line where it says Mayim again, he picked up the coat, did the same thing, hit the water split, and he walked back across the Jordan. So Eliyahu seems to have this ability to control both the water, and well, here he's not controlling the Aish, but Aish is connected with him in some way. Okay, so now we're going to get to the idea of what's happening in Har HaKarmel. At Har HaKarmel, sorry, we have Achav and Izebel, or the king and the queen. They have Nevi'ei HaBaal and Nevi'ei HaAsherah. Those are the two gods that seem to be dominant at the time. And the gods of Baal, well, both prophets were invited, but he was particularly talking to the Nevi'ei HaBaal, to the prophets of Baal. And he basically gave them a challenge, Eliyahu, at Har HaKarmel. And he said to them, okay, so I'm going to give you we're going to have two bulls in front of us. You're going to pick the one you want. So there's no tricky games going on here. You'll get the one that appeals to you, right? So you're going to like cut it up as an offering and put it on the eitzim one, the wood that's there for the korban. And you're not going to put any fire. And I'm going to do the same thing to my par. So I'm also going to put it up on my altar, and I'm not going to put any fire on it either. Right? And you're going to call in the name of your Lord. And I'm going to call in the name of Hashem. And the God that will answer in fire, he's the true God, the person, right? And then all the people answered and said, yes, that's a good idea, right? Because beforehand, I didn't mention it, he gave the famous challenge. He says, Lama poschim al shnei hasi'ifim, like to the people. He said, you're just jumping back and forth. You're worshiping Baal one day, you're worshiping Elohim one day. This can't be, it's not acceptable. Let's figure this out once and for all. Okay, should I stop here and ask for any questions? Okay. So what happened was, before I go there, I'm going to go back one. So before I go there, what happened was the people of Baal, the Nevi'ei HaBaal, the prophets of Baal, they did what he said, and they cut up the thing, but they waited and waited and waited, and nothing happened. The fire did not come down from the sky. So Eliyahu mocked them, and he says, well, maybe your God is sleeping, maybe your God is talking to someone, maybe who knows what, like what's going on here. So they doubled down and they started whipping themselves, so blood started coming and started dancing. It was just it was probably disgusting, actually, but anyway, and still nothing happened. So finally he said, okay, you've had your chance, my turn now. So what did he do? He gathered all the people were gathered anyway, and he asked them to help him, right? And he made his mizbeach. He took 12 stones and he put them on the mizbeach, obviously symbolizing the Bnei Israel, the 12 tribes, right? And on top of that, the itzim, the wood for the korban, etc. But then he did something extra. Okay, vayomru milu arba'a kadim mayim. So he said, okay, now put on. We're going to have 4 kadim of mayim, 4 jugs. Good, jugs of water. V'yitzaku al ha'ola ve'al ha'itzim vayomer. Okay, so and throw those jugs of water onto the korban, and onto the ola, and onto the stratum of wood. Vayomer shnu, and he said, do it a second time. V'yishnu, and they did it a second time. Vayomer shaleshu, do it a third time. V'yishaleshu, and they did it a third time. And interestingly, like 3 times 4, that would be 12 jugs of water went on there because, okay, and also I didn't mention, but they beforehand they made this trench all around the mizbeach, which is why the picture is there. So the water went all around the mizbeach. V'gam et ta'ala milei mayim. So also this trench that they made was filled with water. So basically it was a soaking wet rag, right? It was just almost, when we understand that in theory, if you throw a match into an ocean, the match is going to go out. If you throw a Molotov cocktail into an ocean, right, it's going to go out, or at least it's not going to have an effect on the water. Okay, so we seem to think at this point that water might be a problem if this fire is going to come down, because it wouldn't be able to consume it if it's all doused in water. Okay. Okay. So at the climax of the story, we see so that at mincha time, so in other words, they've waited all day and still nothing has happened with the other korban from the Nevi Habal, but now it's his turn, right? And he comes forward and he says, Hashem Elokei Avraham Yitzchak veYisrael, the God, the Father of our Avot, Hayom Yivada ki ata Elokim beYisrael. So Elohim beYisrael. So today it's going to be proven that you are a God in Israel. Ve'ani avdecha, and I am your servant. Ubidvarecha, and with your word. So again, that's leading us from the first, right? It says bidvare, in my words. So now it's God's words, right? Asiti et kol hadvarim ha'ele. I did all of these things, right? I did all these things based on what you've told me to do. And then he says, Aneni Hashem, Aneni, answer me, God, answer me. And it's a little bit problematic because if you go back in the psukim, which I didn't bring, but the Nevi'e Habal only said Aneni once. And so why is he saying it twice? We kind of have to ask that question, right? V'yidu ha'am hazem ki ata Hashem Elokim. So again, reiterating, answer me, and people will know that you are God. Ve'ata hasibota et libam achoranit. And you turned their hearts backwards. So that's a questionable thing too, but we're not talking about, that has nothing to do with Mayim and Aish, so we're just going to leave that for now. Maybe we can say that God, it wasn't clear to them what they should be doing, so therefore they chose to worship the Baal. We're going to leave that for now. Okay. V'tipol eish Hashem v'tochal et ha'olah. So they, again, just like before in the Corbanot, in the Corban after for the dedication, fire came from the sky and it ate. Okay, so listen. V'tochal et ha'olah ve'et ha'itzim ve'et ha'avanim ve'et ha'afar ve'et ha'mayim asher b'ta'ala lichecha. So it consumed all of those things. First the olah, the korban, then the wood for the korban, and then the stones, and then the dust, and then the mayim that was in the trench. It also licked up. Okay, vayar kol ha'am v'yiplu al pneihem. So we saw this before, right? That all the nations saw and they fell on their faces. Vayomru, and they said, Hashem hu ha'elokim, Hashem hu ha'elokim, which is of course the response he wanted, right? He said, you're going to know that God is Hashem. Hashem is God. Here you go. That's their answer. And again, they say it twice. You could say maybe it's in response to his 2 anenis, but we're going to look into that soon. Okay. So we're going to just focus on this pasuk, and I've written it out a different way, right? The Aish, because that's our topic for today, right? V'tipol Aish Hashem, so that we understand that God sent fire from the sky. V'tochal et olah ve'et ha'etzim ve'et ha'avanim. Okay, we did that. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, why is it like this? What is the problem, right? Why couldn't it just said they ate, like the goal was for it to eat the olah, right? So why does it have to mention everything else? And why do we have to get down to this water thing? So we bring here, I'm going to bring the Malbim, and he says, "V'tochal tchila et ha'ola shehu ha'ikar." It consumed first the olah because that was the main point of doing this at all, right? Shebavura yarda ha'esh, because of the, like, the fire would not have come down to eat stones; it was to eat the korban. So after that, the support staff, basically, of the wood that was supporting the korban. So that's the second most important thing it says. Seems to say the stones, after that the stones, and then after that the mayim. So I am indeed suggesting that he is making a descending order of priority, starting with the olah, it seems, because that was the most important, then the itzim were the next important, and then it seems like he's saying, as we go down further and further, it gets less and less important. But I'm going to kind of take issue with that and suggest something else, or at least look into the pasuk more. So if that's the truth, then that highlighted red part here, I could just omit it, because if it's less and less and less, then we don't have to have asher b'ta'ala lichecha, that it licked up the part that was in the trench. So why does it do that? So first, let's understand what lichecha means. And so inyan likika, so the idea of licking up, right? And then there's a pasuk that they bring. This is from the Metzudat Zion. Berotzei lamar sreifa hakol, that it burnt up every single thing. Kil halokek belashon, like when you lick with your tongue. So I'll finish the next one. Radak on the kings, yavsha otam ad shelo nishar beta'ala shum lachut. So there was not even a little bit of moisture left there. And I brought my little picture because I don't know, when I was younger, I won't, admit to anything right now, but when I was younger, I loved to lick the bowl. And when you lick the bowl, I don't know about you guys, but you wanted to lick every single last drop. So that's the idea of my picture there. So the idea there is that it was so complete and total that this fire was not just consumed the korban and then left. It was there to do its job all the way through. So therefore, we're going to look at, and I always like to take a pasuk or two in my shiurim and like dissect them in terms of not grammar, because I'm not so good at grammar, but in terms of the structure, that's a better word. So if you look here, my green things are, each of these are the verbs, right? V'tipol eish Hashem. So that's one idea.
Excuse me, I don't know if other people, but I can just see the very end of your, of the words. Like it's not on the screen.
Oh, seriously? Everyone else? Can you like?
Oh, you know what? I can move it.
I see it all.
Never mind. My screen was too big. Okay.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, but I'm glad you stopped and
move it over. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So then you have the verb here, v'tochal, right? So you're asking yourself, how much of this was eaten, like tochal et ha'olah, all the way down, even up to the mayim, or the mayim stands with this verb, which it certainly seems to do, asher b'ta'ala lichecha, right? So the mayim was licked up. So we can look at it two ways for our answer, and we can say, well, it makes sense that the water is going to be licked up. Maybe the afar could also be licked up. You could lick up dust, and again, the pasuk they brought, I believe, just before, I think Metzudat Zion, was brought a idea that they licked up dust. So maybe it could be that, and maybe you can even lick up avanim. I don't know. So, but I think logically, when you're licking something, I mean, we do lick up, as the picture just showed, like cake batter or cookie batter, but it's probably a liquid. So then we bring this idea. That's why I have the Tameh Hamikra, these little notes of how to lane the psukim. And this little thing under here is called an Etna, and that sort of signifies the end of a pasuk. If there's no psukim technically in the Torah, but this would indicate to us that this is where a natural stop is in the idea. So therefore, you'd say that it ate all of these things, right? The trees, the branches, the stones, and the afar. And then this stands alone. And so now why we have to ask ourselves, we have to go back and ask ourselves, why, number one, how does this stand alone, this water? And why does it stand alone? And remember the original challenge was just to eat up basically the olah, not even all of these things. And so now why did he add this water to it? What was the point of this extra water challenge? So maybe I'll stop and ask, do you have any ideas on this?
Oh. 1 second.
Anyone want to type up?
I can't do this.
Okay, I can hear you, Elaine, just
Oh,
FYI.
okay, sorry.
Okay.
I was in full screen so I could see. So like in Chad Gadya,
Mhm.
the water quenches the fire.
Right, which is, right, you would expect the water to quench the fire. That's the natural order of things, is it not?
Right, but you have the fire quenching the water in this case.
Correct. So we're going to investigate that and what that means. But again, we're asking ourselves, this is not an ordinary fire. This is not a natural fire. This is a fire from Hashem. So that's how it's different. So here we go. There are 5 kinds of fires, according to Rabbi Steinsaltz, okay, on the Masechet in the Gemara. And he says this, Yesh eish ochelet ve'eino shotet. So there's a fire that it eats and does not drink, right? And then he says, ha'esh harigela hasorefet dvarim. So the regular kind of fire that we know of that can burn up a book, let's say, right? Then there's eish shotet ve'eino ochelet. And then, so a fire that drinks but does not eat. And that would be, he explains, that's like sort of like when you have a fever and your body feels dry, it's dried up all the liquids in your body, but it's not, burnt you technically, right? And then he says, so that a fire that both eats and drinks, and then he brings the pasuk that we just had. So, and then he brings 2 more, which are not relevant. These are more the physical ones, the 3 that I've highlighted. The last 2 are more metaphysical ones. This is just for the sake of completion. There's Eish that repels Eish, and he says that that's from Gabriel in Daniel. Apparently there was a fire, and they were going to be consumed by this fire, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. And then this Gabriel came, who is made of fire, and repelled the fire, so they were saved, right? V'yesh eish ochelet eish, and so there's a fire that consumes other fires, and that would be Hashem here, who consumed the fire of some malachim, okay? Because malachim are also made of fire, certain ones among them. Okay, so, but for our purposes, we're saying that eish ochelet v'shoteh is the kind of fire we have here. Okay, so then this is the last pasuk, right? They saw this and they bowed on the ground. And why are they bowing on the ground? Because obviously it was just like the Korban that came down before, it was an extraordinary event, right? And they say Hashem hu ha'elokim because they recognize that now God is the true God. Okay, but we're still asking ourselves, and I'm just, did anyone have an idea of why Eliyahu had to add the element of water in addition? Like, wouldn't it have been enough? The original challenge was you just, whichever God consumes their bull, that's going to be the winning God. Any idea from anyone? Okay, no problem. So I just put it back here, and I remind you that it says Aneni Hashem Aneni. Why did he have to say 2 Anenis? Right, that's our question. So it's a related question to why is there 2 Mayim and Eish? And here we go. Right, so here I'm going to read. This was from our originals, the list of 6 items that were a positive thing to come down from Hashem, the positive fire. In this highlighted red section, I've rewritten it here. Okay, so the Shishit Bimei Eliyahu. Now we're going to go into it more. So option 1, it says Harishon biyiridat ha'esh. The first one, he said Aneni twice, right? Hushekatuv Aneni Hashem Aneni. Why? Harishon biyiridat ha'esh. So the first one is so that the fire would come down and consume the Corbanot, and obviously, and do everything on Har Carmel, basically. Hasheni biyiridat ha'matar, because remember that Eliyahu had said that there's going to be no rain, but now he has to make sure that there's rain for the people because God has commanded him to bring the rain. And this is the second Aneni. Answer me for rain. Lefishuhu nishpa, and then they bring the pasuk at the beginning that we had, right? Hashanim ha'ele talu matar. So this is the antidote to that by saying the second Aneni. But option 2 is the option that I think answers our question better, right? Obar lamar aneni. Why does it say aneni? Harishon shetared esh v'tikabel hakorbanot. So the first one is that first half of the sentence that fire should come down and it should consume all of the korban and all of the things around the korban. Aneni hasheni b'tosefet v'ribui ha'esh. So there should be extra fire or better fire or more fire. Kidei shelo yichlu hamayim lichavota aval hi tiluchach b'hamayim. So the second aneni is also that there should be enough fire that the water is also consumed, right? That, as it says, that it licked up the water. Okay, so that's the two anenis, but it still hasn't answered us why we need both that and that. Okay, I don't know why I just brought the leaf there. Nevertheless, enjoy my leaf. A reiteration of this, and what do I have to say that? Yes, so we only wanted the fire we only wanted the fire for the olah, but now we have the fire also for the mayim. And Aderet Eliyahu explains it thusly. V'hinei ata kol ha'am ra'u be'eneihem mofet gadol. So the whole nation saw a wondrous occurrence. U'mavetel svara zot, and it negated this idea that we're going to say in a second. V'hu ki hinei teva ha'esh, so that it's the nature of fire, and Elaine just mentioned this, right? She'yitkabeh mikoach hamayim, that it would be put out from the power of the water, right? That fire is less strong than water. V'hinei ech ata haya lehefech. And so now how can this be that it's opposite? Shehu lachach et hamayim, that it dried up the water. Shehu vishoto, and it dried it up again. Lo nichba mikocho, and it was not as strong. It was stronger than the strength of the water. V'imken have bet hefachim hafachim. There was two opposites b'noseh echad, in one topic, in one idea. Ve'achar kach mizeh v'imken, mizeh yadu vehivinu. So from this they understood and they knew shegam ota hasbara shesovrim poel hatov ve'eno poel hara. So they used to think, just I don't know, the translation not exact, they used to think, the Baal people think, that there is a power that is good and there is a power that is bad, and those two powers fight each other. Correct? And you have to be on the right side of the power, right? Okay, so poel hatov eno poel hara hi betela. So that idea is now betela. That idea is now null and void. Mivutelet, and also null and void. There you go. Defshar liot bet hefech hafechim. It is possible to have two opposites b'noseh echad, in one topic, in one item, in one idea. Echad kazot. V'hinei yadua d'shem havaya. So the name Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, the four-letter name of Hashem. Hu rachamim. It represents rachamim. Mind block. Mercy. Thank you. It represents mercy. V'shem Elokim hu din. In the name of the word Elohim, right, represents din. And how can it be that either you're merciful or you're going midat hadin? And that doesn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense to us, but this is the idea of Hara Carmel. Az vayomru, so Hashem hu ha-Elokim, Hashem, the four-letter name, hu ha-Elokim, they're both the same. Hashem hu Elokim, the Elokim hu Hashem, except they didn't make it reverse, they just basically, that's why it says it twice, right? So both, each is the other and the other is each. Klomar ata nitvareh lahem, ki afshar liot bet bechayim b'noseh echad, repeating again and again that there's the possibility to have opposites within the same thing. Ve'imken Hashem shehu rachamim hu ha'elokim shehu din. Okay, so is that idea more or less clear? Does it need more explanation? Okay, but that's the idea. That's our answer to why there needed to be Eish and Mayim. The people needed to see this. They need that was the negation of the theory of the Baal, of the Nevi'ei HaBaal, that they can worship one and the other because there are a multiplicity of gods. Here we're saying there's only one God, which is of course what we say every day. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Right? And when we say that, that's the idea. We don't understand things in this world that seem to be bad, but it's all for the good. And we have to understand that it looks like, maybe it looks like Din, or maybe it looks even worse than Din, but it's really not. It's really Hashem. And going back to my thank you for Hashem, that he gives us a world that we need and that is perfect for us. Okay, so now how much time do I have? Excellent. Hopefully we will be able to finish on time. We're just a little bit over. Okay, so this is a love story in 3 parts, but basically in 3 different ways. So I'm going to tie it back to Eliyahu, I hope, at some point. And if I don't, please somebody tell me that I should and ask me the question at the end. Are we still recording? Yes, okay, good. So this is my favorite psukim of all of Tanakh. It is from Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. And let's just go through it. Okay, I included the first little part at the top because it just goes together, but it's not really related to fire and water. Simeni kechotem al libecha. Put for me, the translation I don't like here again, sorry, but sometimes I'll use it, sometimes I won't. Simeni kechotem al libecha. So put me as a seal upon your heart. Kechotem al zroecha, as a seal upon your arm. Ki aza kamavet ahava, because love is as strong as death. Kasher kishol kin'ah, that they say here, passion, I'll buy that. It could be also jealousy, is as strong as mighty as Sheol, which is the place where we go after we die. Rishafeha rishpe'esh, that's darts or it's sparks of fire. Shalhevet ya, they say here a blazing flame. I'm going to say shalhevet is a flame ka of God. It's a flame of God. Ma'im rabim lo yechlu lechabot et ahava. So many waters will not be able to quench love, to drown it out, right? Uneharot lo yishtafuha. And rivers will not, they say drown it, I say wash it away. Okay, so this is the idea of what is love. This is at the end of Shir HaShirim, and Shir HaShirim is a very interesting love poem. It's between the Dod and the Raya, and the Dod, throughout the story, there's many things that are very questionable, very not well understood, but basically they get together, they speak a little bit, they separate. There's these people, they are called Benot Yerushalayim, that mostly the Raya keeps talking to. There's the idea of Shlomo pops up in a bunch of places, right? So it's very mysterious, but I think good poetry is meant to be mysterious, but that's just my opinion. So now we're asking our question. So how is Aish and Mayim related within this, right? We had our Aish and Mayim before for Eliyahu, and now we have here. Sorry. So I also want to add this, just sort of a few little explanatory ideas, right? This is from Eov. Avanim shachaku mayim tishtof svicheha afar aretz. So the idea here is water wears away stone, which we know, right? If you have a drip of water, and the stone eventually over time will be worn away, and torrents wash away earth. And that's the same idea we had back here at the bottom line, the word lo yishtafuha, right? The washing away or drowning it out. Okay, so I'm going to take a second because last time I gave my little like Eretz Yisrael point. So here we're going to give one as well. This idea that if you have not seen it, I'm going to share it with you. Come on. So I just gave a pasuk about the land is a good land with streams and springs and fountains, just for fun. That's nothing, not really exciting. But if you can go back to this and you understand Hebrew and you can click on this, this is a longer version of what I'm going to show you with commentary in Hebrew that is, I won't say hilarious, but it's quite entertaining. But we're going to do this one today because it's much shorter. Now let's see if this is going to work. This is what is known in Israel as a shitafon. And if you go down to the Dead Sea, you will possibly come across roads that are at a lower level and you see like dirt coming towards them. That's where a shitafon has happened. And I'm just talking while it's loading. And it's very rare to see a shitafon, but we're going to share one right now. And you'll notice that where the people are standing, which you couldn't get me to stand there for all the money in the world. Here we go. And you sort of get the idea that when they did Prince of Egypt or the Ten Commandments, that when the plague of death came, it felt like this, it seems to me. And look where they're standing. Yeah, no. Okay, we've had enough of the shittafon. You did see that, right? It came up on your screen? Okay. Right, so that's the idea of a shittafon, and then when it says lo yishtafuha, that everything in that path is being washed away with that shittafon. Okay, so that's the verb that we're using. Okay, now we're going to go back and pick up on the theme that I've been developing since the beginning, right? Rishafeha rishpe'esh, right? This is from Torah Tmima. Rab Brachya Omer, Ke'esh Shel Mala. Somebody's waiting to get in. Ke'esh Shel Mala. This is a fire from above. Okay, so the Rishpe'esh, this love is a fire from above that's basically given to the couple by God. Okay, let's just move down to here. The Mekivan She'Rishafeh Rishpe'esh Ke'esh Shel Mala She'ein Hamayim Mekavim Otat. So that therefore water cannot put it out. Just like the fire of Eliyahu, right? So love cannot be put out by this water. Just an aside for a few slides, right? This is the story of, not the story, but the pasuk from Moshe and the bush, right? Vayar malach Hashem elav belabat ish mitoch hasne vayar vehine hasne boer beish vehasne einenu ukal. So he was watching this fire, the burning bush, and it was not consumed. So we just have to take a scientific step backward and say, well, when we have fire, think of a match, we light the match burns down, all the wood in the match is gone, the fire goes out, right? If you don't light a candle, then the wax in the candle will burn until the wax is gone. We need that chomer, the substance, the fuel, in order to burn for the fire to burn. Okay, and so this is certainly a miraculous occurrence, because without the fuel, the tree was the fuel, but yet it wasn't burning. So therefore the fire was a fire of God, sort of by definition, because otherwise if it wasn't, it would have been a regular fire and burnt up the tree. So we go back to our idea that in the Mishkan, we have the fire came down to light the korban of the olah, just like it came down for Eliyahu. But then we have this idea that every morning and every night, they're going to have to stoke the fires and make sure that that fire continues to burn. And who's going to do that? The Kohanim, right? Va'esh al hamizbeach tukad bo lo tikabeh uvi'er aleha hakohen etzim baboker verach aleha olah v'hiktir aleha chalvei hashlamim. So basically, this fire on the mizbeach is going to burn and never go out, right? Lo tikabeh, it's going to not. So the Kohen's going to put upon it trees, branches, feed it every morning with the wood, and every night as well. Okay, so the idea here I'm trying to promote is that Hashem sent us this, I want a connection with you, Aish, and we have to stoke the fires of that connection, and we have to say, okay, thank you for the original fire, but now we are going to put in our part and create a response to your initiation of the relationship. And we are going to make sure that that fire continues to burn, because we too would like to continue this relationship with you, Hashem. Again, Hashem from the beginning. But I think this is just a nice idea, sort of removed from everything else I said. And I'm going to say it outside because we're running out of time. The idea here is that the idea here is that in our tefillot, right, we have tefillot morning and night, and okay, mincha as well. And the idea is we have that fire relationship with Hashem. He wants this relationship, and if we stoke those fires by coming to him, we don't have Corbanot anymore, but in their place we have tefillot. So we want to maintain the fire that he has given us. He wants the relationship. We want to give the relationship back. We're unable to stoke the fires, but we are able to do tefillah, right? So we come morning and night to say, the relationship that you started with us, God, we would like it to continue, not derech the fires, not derech the mizbeach, but derech tefillah. Okay, and I just wanted to add that because I think it's very nice idea. Okay, back to this. So we have the idea here. Do we have any questions or reactions to, we did a few detours. Now we're back to dealing with this. And again, I'm sorry, I'm going to go about 5 minutes over, maybe 10. Any questions about this? Anything, do you think of this as a good love poem, a bad, the part of the poem, obviously? Is there a question about what's going on here? Anyone?
I love this.
You love it. Oh, hi, Joe.
There we go. Sorry, it takes
I'm
me a
trying
long
to
time
take
to unmute.
Sorry. Right? Okay, so, but is there anything like questionable? Is it a typical love poem, you think?
Check. Oh,
Check the chats.
the chat.
It was very beautiful, very powerful.
I'm not finished. So you do like this, whoever's speaking?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Are there any questions on it? We're on fire. I like it. Okay. Okay, but some people have a question about what's this death going on here, and like fire. I don't know. The seal we're not going to deal with today, but the death we might get to. Okay. So we're going to talk about this. Remember, I said in 3 parts. So why isn't it moving? Okay. I'm sorry, it seems when I stop, it doesn't, then it goes. Okay, so we're gonna do it. This is part 1, almost. I'll tell you when part 1 is over. So if you have, we're gonna go backwards. We're gonna talk about the Mayim and then go back to the Eish. Mayim rabim lo yichlu lechabod et ha'ava. So the idea here is there's these 2 little people, I don't know if you can see them down here, and they have a water dump. I don't know if you've been to these water parks, and then fills up, and then eventually it dumps on you, and that's really, the kids scream, it's great. But so you're going to have this dumping of water, this one catastrophic, or at least not catastrophic, but event that you both have to deal with. But even if you have that event and you can get through it, then Mayim Rabim, this a lot of water is not going to douse the love you have for each other. Okay, or Neharot, right? And Nahar, we saw it flows in one direction usually. So I will suggest that the 2 people are standing here where this stick is, where this marker is, and they're watching. There's a drop of water here, the pink one that goes by first, the green one goes by second. So as they stand on this river of life together, they watch day in and day out, things happen. They have to get up, they have to make breakfast, they have to get the kids off to school, whatever else it is. And it becomes a mundane routine thing. But what they're saying is, if this love is a true love, Naharot, this mundane day-to-day existence, that will not get rid of your love, that your love will still be there. But I'm going to suggest that that's for 2 people who are what I would call in union. They are living together, they are together. So that's one way of understanding this part of Shiur HaShiurim, just as 2 people being together and having this intense love. But I'm going to give you a second one, so that's part 1. Part 2 is a couple not in union. Now, what would this mean? Mayim rabim. How can we understand Mayim rabim? A lot of water. Where do we see a lot of water in our lives? Well, we see a lot of water, when my slide comes up, across vast bodies of water. So what they're saying here is there's these 2 people that have this Eish Hashem, that they are connected through a fire that God has given them, or they have fed that's fire of Hashem. They've created a relationship with Hashem, and he's maybe responded to them by giving them this love between each other. But they're at a distance from each other. They are not in union, they're far apart. They can't be together for whatever reason. And there's a reason I'm saying this. Okay, so that's one, it's a distance. And of course, what goes with distance, i.e. place, we have the idea of time. So the idea here for this river, if we want to talk about, it's the same idea of time, like here the time became a routine, but here we have the same item moving forward in time. So they are maybe not able to be with each other every day, maybe every week, maybe for years on end. But nevertheless, they still have this Eish Hashem between them. Now, why do I say this? Because this is the paradigm of Shiur HaShiurim, because most people will say that Shiur HaShiurim is a love story between Bnei Israel, right, the Jewish people, and God. And God and the Bnei Israel, sometimes we are not together. Sometimes we are in Galut. Sometimes we are kicked out of our land. And God doesn't seem to be apparently with us, like this situation over here, where we are far in distance from each other. I mean, obviously God, we know he's everywhere, but I'm saying we don't feel it as closely as we would if we were in our land. So that's an idea of place. There's also this idea of time. So Galut lasts a long time. And when it lasts a long time, we obviously start to feel distant and more distant from Hashem, and that's not a good thing. So if you look in the art scroll rendering of Shir HaShirim, it takes up this idea and talks about all the different aspects that are mentioned in Shir HaShirim and how they reflect Jewish history and our relationship with God. And we move together, we move apart, etc. We're good, we're bad, etc. Okay, so that's part 2. So you can look at it either as individuals, have this Eish Hashem. Now, going back to the idea of Chomer, these people here, they have day-to-day connection. They live together, they talk together. So that Eish Hashem is fuel, has fuel, right? It is fueled every day. So the question is the fuel the thing that's keeping them together? Is it a regular kind of fire, or is it a fire from Hashem that is overlaid with this everyday Chomer, this everyday material fuel causing their love? But here it's clear there's no fuel. They're not together. They don't have a relationship every day, but yet the fire, the love remains, and the love of Bnei Israel and Hashem remains, right? God will always love us. We will always love Hashem. We just, we annoy him a little bit. What can we do? Okay, so that's 2. Now we've had 2 out of the 3. The third one, and we're almost ending here. The third one is the idea of the Malbim, and it is a brilliant idea. And remember I said that there's all sorts of problems with Shir HaShirim. So I think the Malbim answers them very nicely. And one of the problems is this purple thing of imitain. After the psukim I just read, it says, imitain ish et kol hon beito. If a man would give all of the wealth of his household, be'ahava, for love, boz yavozulo, it would be an embarrassment to him. So the idea is like, after all this beautiful fire and water and love and like, what is this thing about? If you give all of your wealth for love, what is that about? So the Malbim explains that in his theory, the Dod, right, is the male and Haraya is the female, and they have this connection of Eish. And then then there's this person. Usually it's 2 people, Hashem and Bnei Israel. Now there's this third entity over here, and he's throwing it's like a love triangle, that's why it's a triangle, right? He wants to make this connection here, of this dotted connection, but he's unable to make it. He's throwing water onto the fire in order to put out that fire and cause her to join him over here. Okay, so that's Malbim's idea. But now, who are these people? What do these represent? That's the mashal. Now we need the nimshal. We need to know how to explain what all this is. So he says that this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? That's the Dod. And the Raya is the soul, a person's soul. And the person's soul always has this connection with Hashem. And we have this, and that's the strongest possible connection that cannot be broken. And we're trying to throw mayim. And remember, we had the 2 arrows one going up and one going down. So the mayim is coming down, right? The mayim is chomriyot. The mayim is the material hon beito, the things that bring us down into this world, and the physical things, basically, which aren't bad necessarily, but they're not spiritual. So, and the Eish is, of course, the thing that's going upwards towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So our soul is always doing this little dance between knowing that it belongs to Hashem, but Shlomo is saying, look, I was the wealthiest man ever. I wanted to enjoy the pleasures of this world. And if you look at Kohelet, or if you look at Mishlei, you're going to go, yeah, he has this tension within him. So that makes a lot of sense that he's created this love poem about this issue with, it's basically his inner turmoil of, I'd like you to be a little bit more with me and less of a soul with God, but how to balance that, basically. So I thought that was quite brilliant of Shlomo to do that. So, and again, we add the idea of death. Remember, we had death is stronger, right? Love is stronger than death, because even with death, what's going to happen here? Then this soul and this HaKadosh Baruch Hu are going to be reunited. So that's why death is in this story as well. And I would like to give one further idea on this, and that is the idea of fire, right? We talk more about water maybe, but here's a little idea about fire, and it's an idea that maybe some or all of you have heard before, but I'm going to give it a different twist. And then with this, we will end. So again, just a minute or 2 more. This is from the Gemara in Sota, right? Deresh Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva, who we all know, Ish v'isha zachu shchina b'nehem. If they are worthy, if they merited, there will be the shchina, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu will reside between them. Lo zachu, if they do not merited, eish ochaltan. So either that means that they are going to like succumb to their desires and do the thing they shouldn't do, or basically they'll just be destroyed by doing it, like by not having Hashem between them and doing bad things. If they're, again, if these are obviously like married people or not married people, etc. So usually it's explained as this. Ish is a man, Isha is a woman. And if you take out the Yud from Ish and the Hey, right, from Isha, and you combine them, like I haven't put the Yud here, but usually there's the Yud before here, right? So that becomes, if you remove the Yud and the Hey from Isha and Ish, then what are you going to get? You're going to get Ish, and Ish is going to be that destructive force that is between them, and you don't want that. So keep God in your marriage, in your relationship with your spouse or with your beloved, whoever. Okay, but I'm going to spin it on its head in my final slide, I believe. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to say, if you take that Yud and the Hey, and you take that Aish, that passion, that the fire that is given by God, that is a heavenly fire, the fire that is the way love should be between people, then you're going to get the ideal of Ish and Isha. Then you're going to get that proper relationship, as opposed to looking at it negatively. I'm trying to look at it positively, and you say you want to add Hashem to the relationship, and then you will have this proper Aish, not the Aish of passion, but the Aish of understanding what a true relationship is. And with that, I will summarize to say that the Aish we were talking about today is the Aish of Hashem, right? And the Aish of Hashem is not an Aish based on some fuel. It's an Aish that is a true and pure love. In most of the cases, right? Hashem, he brought down the Corbanot in Eliyahu to be a understanding, to make us love him again, to make us understand that Hashem is our God, and therefore we should have that connection with him, just like in the Mizbeach, that has to be always have Aish on it, and that's Hashem's Aish that we stoke so that we can have that relationship. Okay, so I didn't so much focus on the actual fire burning things, but on the fire of Hashem today, just like in my previous class, we focused on Ruach Hashem, and here it's Aish Hashem, both of the which go up to the sky. So before we stop share, I'll just give you a minute if you would like to write down my email. I always love to hear from you, mostly about ideas. I mean, you can say anything you want about the class, but if you have some really cool idea on anything we talked about, I'd love to hear it. Oh, and I have a hand up, yay! Senior Arlak, what can I help you with?
Yes, so first of all, Yashkar to you, and I loved your graphics, were just so clarifying of all the points that you were making. And I like those two images of the two faces across the ocean. So then, you know, as you're talking about love and family and between us and Hashem, if family are apart, whether they're on earth or they're on away, you know, across the ocean, then we are connected with the water. So there's still a connection there, even though you're far away.
Oh,
So,
I like
I like that image.
Okay.
Really nice. One little item, I'm just thinking with regard to the fire that we can add to the collection of the fiery sword and Sodom and everything, was Abraham and the covenant between the parts.
Right, that's amazing. I'm so sorry I forgot that. That's crucial.
Right,
Okay.
so you should character you. It's really very inspiring.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate your input, and I appreciate your new ideas. Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, Karyn, thank you so much. That was inspiring. And I just wanted to add something that I don't know if you agree it would be in this context. Water is Torah, is often referred to Torah. So maybe we can connect that as well.
Correct. That is a
Right.
big one.
Yeah, that it could be a positive force as well, together with the fire.
Correct.
Like our passion for Hashem should obviously always include davening, Torah learning, and just bring it all together. That's just my thought.
Right. I did toy with the idea that Torah is often compared to Mayim, but I thought it would confuse the issue, so I didn't want to say it. But
Right. Yeah, understand for sure. But beautiful. Thank you so much. Really inspiring.
Thank you all for coming. Anyone else?
Just want to ask you, is it recorded anywhere so I can hear it again?
We hope it is. Last week we weren't so successful, maybe.
Recording.
So, and again, I'll try to put the other one up if I
I'll
can.
check on last week's.
Right, we'll check on last week's, and if it's not, I'll try to quickly record it and get that up as well.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very
Thanks
much.
so much.
Take care. Have a lovely day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.